If you're tired to have 5 different Slack bots that don't talk to each other, today I'm going to show you how to build the ultimate bot that does all of it. By the end of this video, you will have an ultimate bot that can reference documentation, but also is able to update your records in Pipedrive. Let's dive in. In the last episode, we built an agent that does reference documentation from Google Drive. We built an ingestion process. We built a Slack integration that is able to connect to Slack and trigger from Slack and answer the questions. But today, what we're going to be talking about is how to build a system and extend that to a multi-agent architecture and connect more tools that allow users in Slack to do more than just reference documentation. We are going to be connecting Pipedrive today, which is a CRM, fairly affordable, but you can use any other CRM like Salesforce or HubSpot. It's up to you. We're going to start from what we started last video, is to build a very simple system that takes the message from the user and responds back. So in a Slack trigger here, we have this listening to new messages and also to bot app mentions. And we're going to enable this for the whole workspace. But one more thing, we're going to exclude the bot itself from replying to itself. This is another option here in the trigger. And in the sending message, what we're going to do, we're going to grab the channel ID from JSON. Actually, let's execute this node first to see what's happening. See this message triggered properly. So what we are taking in, we take in this Slack trigger and we pass in the channel ID here. So we're going to reply in the same channel, and then we're going to reply with the same text. So in Slack, we'll see bot saying, hey. So this is great. And then one thing I want to add here in the reply message is that I want to exclude the link to workflow, which is a little bit annoying. So that should probably prevent that from putting a link there down. In the last video, we focused on a bot that replies directly in the channel. And what I want to do, and I want this bot to reply back in DMs. And in order to do that, you go to configuration of your bot in Slack, and then you make sure you check this box. One thing I want this bot to do is to receive the message and acknowledge that, then do some processing and send me the results back. One way to do that would be to send a message immediately after the Slack trigger, then do AI processing, and then at the end, just update the message that we already sent. So it's going to replace the processing message. Let's do that, and let's dive into the send message here. We're going to replace that message text with something that we want to send. So we're going to say processing, and we're going to take it out here. This is great. So that's going to send the processing message. So the next step would be to add an actual agent, which is going to be our Omni agent that will control the rest of the agents. So to do that, we're going to go and create an AI agent. And an AI agent, we're going to change the input text, and the input text is going to be coming directly from the Slack message, which is great. And then we're going to talk about the rest. So for the chat model, we're going to be using OpenAI chat model. So, and another thing we haven't touched on last time is the memory. So memory is essentially a way to remember what the user said before, what the agent responded back. So you have some continuity. For example, the user put something in a query, the agent didn't know that, returned the results, and then the user asked the question again with more information and more detail. So that will help the agent to remember this. So in agent, you can use simple memory, which we're going to be stored in the memory directly in the process. So once the agent stops executing, you're going to lose that memory. But more reliable way of doing that would be to use Postgres chat memory. So Postgres chat memory would be storing this directly in Postgres. And as far as we're using Supabase Postgres already, that's great because we can configure it and store all of the data directly there. So here in credentials, I added some of the details here in the account. So if you are interested in how to do that, I would highly recommend going to your database in Supabase, and I'm going to be using the transaction pooler details here. And obviously, you make sure you change this password to your password. So once it's set up, we also need to update the session ID. Session ID is essentially a unique way to identify the session. So in our case, we have a user ID, which is probably going to be going into the session, and we also have a channel, the channel that it's been mentioned in. We can also go and define how this session is being stored, and I'm going to be using expressions. So what I'm going to do right now, I'm going to build that session ID directly from the Slack bot message. So we're going to grab user ID here. We're going to add also a channel. Let's look for the channel. The channel happened in a trigger. And we also probably want this channel type at the end. So what I'm going to do, I'll also add underscores here just for a clear separation. So we're going to have user ID, channel ID, and a content type. So that's going to be unique session ID. Our bot doesn't do anything right now, and maybe let's go and connect what we built in a past episode. In order to do that, you would need to go and create a new workflow. And we're going to copy paste what we built last time and add a few modifications. There are a few differences here from the last workflow that we've built. And one of them is how the workflow is triggered and what's the output is and where does it go. For the Slack trigger, we want to swap it with executed by another workflow. You can find it here in the trigger section. And the output, we're going to use the set variable and save the results at the end. But the rest of that, pretty much the same. Let's look into the configuration of this trigger. One thing I want to do is define the fields that we're going to be passing into this workflow. And I created one called query. It's going to be a string type. The way that's going to work is that the ultimate agent will be passing this query into this agent, and it's only the one parameter that will be needed to execute the whole workflow. So all the query is going to be passed to the documents agent. So as you can see here, it grabs the query, and we have the same configuration as last time. So not a lot of changes. And here in the success, we're going to use the set node, and we're going to map the output into a string variable. So that's going to be the output of the tool itself. And we're going to have a name here, documentation agent, which is great. And let's go back to the Omni Agent. Let's actually rename that to Omni Agent. And one thing we can do here is to call a workflow as a tool, which is amazing. So you click on plus and then call n8n workflow tool. And we're going to pick this tool from the database directly. And we're going to be picking up this from the list of agents that we have a workflow called documentation agent. This is great. So what will happen is that in our agent, there are going to be instructions that will say, here's a documentation tool. Please use that tool when you want to reference some documentation. One thing you want to do here is customize the description of this tool. And I'm going to paste it here, something I put together. So if there's any question about documentation, any policies, please use this tool. And another thing we want to do here is to add the actual query as a parameter. So we can go back to our Slack trigger, and we're going to pass the text here as a query parameter. Okay, now we have our Slack bot. And last thing we're going to add is the Slack update message. So we want to update this processing message we created earlier. So let's go to Slack. Update message. After adding this update message node, we need to go and customize the settings. So we are expecting this to send messages back to our test channel, which is not right. We need to pick the channel where the bot actually came up with the trigger. And in order to do that, we need to trigger the workflow again and get some of the test input information. So let's click execute. Let's go to Omnibot and say, hey. So I have some processing happening. So, and obviously it's failed. But we have some information here that we can pass to the bot. So we're going to pick the channel ID here and use an expression. And that channel ID would be the channel ID from the trigger. And then the message we're going to be updating is the message from the processing message. So this is the timestamp. Look into the message here. Look at the timestamp, which is essentially the ID of the message. And the message text would be the result, the output from the Omni agent. Okay, that should work. Let's go test it out. Okay, great. So it sent results back. Hey, it seems like you're indicating kind of question. Okay. That means that we are doing something wrong. And let's go look into what the inputs are. And the inputs are essentially message text from the previous message, which is processing, which is not super helpful. So we need to go and update this with the text coming directly from the trigger. And we're going to clean it up here. And that should work again. Let's go test it. Okay, it says processing here, which is great. Okay, how can I assist you today? This is great. And also it sends it with the link, which we probably want to also remove. And I would exclude this link here. and making sure we are excluding also links from the update. Okay, right now our workflow works and we connected it to Slack. Let's go test our documentation tool. Let's go trigger the workflow and let's go ask a simple question. I want to make sure it uses the documentation tool, which is great. You can see here. Goes back to OpenAI and then returns the results. Okay, sounds like we have 1,500 annual coverage for HSA. For the next part of this video, we're going to be adding a CRM tool. Let's add Pipedrive tool, and we're going to pick deal, and we're going to go and say, I want to get the deal details. Great, so we have a deal ID here, which we obviously don't know. If you go look into the Pipedrive, you probably can find this deal ID here in the URL, but we never know which deal we would need. So instead of doing that directly, let's go in and build something else that will help us to receive that deal in the first place. Let's go and add another Pipedrive tool here that will help us to find deals. So here we have the resource deal, and we're gonna go, and operation would be search. And you can see term here, and obviously we don't know the term because AI is gonna be able to process this for us. So in order to make this happen, we click here a little button, which does the magic, and will automatically define what the search term is. So we're gonna have the tool description here that says automatically. And let's go back to our get a deal Pipedrive, and let's try to infer this deal ID. So we're gonna go click on this magic button here again. So that would ideally figure out how to get this ID from the context that the agent already has. I'm gonna go grab this deal ID table. I'm gonna be asking questions about that. And yeah, let's test it out again. I'm going to ask it to give me details on deal in Pipedrive. And let's make sure it uses some of the tools. Okay, it used the search deal Pipedrive and get deal Pipedrive, and hopefully we'll get some results on that deal. So it returned the details of this deal, which is amazing. And we can reuse some of that logic here to continue building this agent. For the next tool, we're going to do add another Pipedrive tool that would be updating the deal. So we're going to use updates, and we're going to go again use this magic here to infer the deal ID, and we're going to be updating status. So let's say we want to close this deal, and we're going to close this deal by saying update the deal. Let's say close the deal in Pipedrive. Let's go test it out and ask the bot to close our deal. Let's execute the workflow. Go Omnibot and ask to close our deal. As you can see, it's open here. And what happens is that it's processing the request, and then wait, what happens? Okay, it looks like it's closed. Let's go to Pipedrive. It's marked as 1, which is great. One helpful thing we can do here is to let people add notes in Pipedrive directly through Slack. In order to do that, we're going to create a new node here, which will be the tool, and that tool would be creating a new resource called note. And we're going to create a new note. The content of that note will be coming from directly from an AI agent. We're going to use this magic button here. And then another thing we want to attach that to, we want to attach that to a deal. And the deal ID is 0 here. Again, using the magic button, hopefully that works. That would infer the deal ID from the context. Now we have another node here to create a note. And now let's go test it out. To Slack bot and ask the bot to add a note and update the deal size to $50,000. Looking back into n8n, we want to make sure that the node creation tool is being used. So that's being executed correctly. We're going to go back to Pipedrive, and then we see, okay, the deal was won, and it's the size of $50,000. Looks like it works. That's pretty much a success, I think. We've been able to build a couple of tools that are connected to Pipedrive and are able to take actions, research information, pull this information back into the Omni Agent. And one thing we can improve in the future is that instead of adding more tools to the screen into Omni Agent directly, we can create this workflow similar to Documentation Agent, but connect all of the tools here directly into the Pipedrive. So that's going to be basically a Pipedrive agent. And we can continue piling up more and more of those. And the problem if you do this horizontally is that over a certain number of tools, the agent will be actually a little bit lost and would not be able to know where to route specific requests if you have like 20, 30, 50 of those tools right here. So you'll struggle to see some good results from this agent. But if you build a hierarchy essentially where the sub agent is able to delegate its work to another sub agents, that architecture can work and scale much better. And there you have it, one Omni agent that is able to reference documentation, but also use CRM and update the CRM. Pretty cool, huh? And don't forget to check out the description. I included the link to this workflow there. Now I want to hear from you. What kind of automations do you want me to build? Drop your ideas in comments.